Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Oh my goodness. What a day. A day in house projects, like big house projects. And I started off at like 10 o'clock this morning and I had to stop, not even being close to done at 10 o'clock at night. 12 hours. I went 12 hours. I got a couple of lessons, and just a couple of perspectives. Sometimes I just love to go in and experience. I'm just wondering if there's something here, that has a great story or something that can impact or influence in a good way. What's the word? Inspire. Thank you. Inspire. So sometimes I just go off and I allow YouTube to give me a video, whether it's a documentary. Sometimes these are just lighthearted things like my metal detecting videos, and it does inspire me in all aspects because that's real life. These are real characters. And we spend so much time on our own that we don't really pay attention to those around us. For the most part, we would just get from point A to point B and just be invisible. I get that because growing up as a child, I wanted to be invisible. I truly wanted not to be noticed in my household, at school, just even out and about, with my friends, and in that trying to fit in, I always found myself, right, just not wanting to be there. But because I was there, I was having an experience. And even if I didn't talk, even if I didn't come forward, right, I was always paying attention, right, as a spectator and as a student. And we should do that because you don't really get a true idea of what the world is all about until you're able to do that. Because, growing up, I was that person. I didn't want to be seen, I didn't want to be heard. My sisters were my friends. I spent my time, for the most part, in a household that didn't have visitors, right? And I certainly didn't want to bring friends over. And that's a sad thing to say. And I have to say, because it just popped into my head when I said that, is I saw a short tonight, and it was a gentleman, and he was graduating, and his mother came from the USA, and stood behind him as he's getting his presentation and stuff. And when it was done, he turned around and he freaked out and bawled his eyes out and threw himself into his mother's arms. And I'm looking at that and I'm going, I don't know what that is, right? That's an experience I've never I've never had, right? That relationship since the very beginning with my mother was very strenuous, right? Right, and that's putting it mildly. And you have to think, I was totally blank as to what was going on, but because that was my mother, and you grow up, right? Honor thy mother and your father, and yeah, I right, and I didn't get an opportunity to really be a student and spectator in the early years, uh, in other people's lives, right? Because it was just me and my family. I was actually, my sister dropped me off the other day. We went out thrifting, right? And I was saying to her, what was it? Oh my goodness, it was so pertinent to what I was just going to say too. It will pop back. If it's meant to be spilled, it will pop back. I'm just going to have my sip of my coffee in the meantime. Hope everybody's having a great night. I know for myself, right? I am winding down now. This is a little bit of an aspect as of late uh, to expel any wasted energy. Right? I'm good and tired. Believe me, I didn't need to come live tonight to order to be able to sleep good. But, right? It is what it is. You spew it out and you recognize that, somebody else is getting ready for bed. And even though some of these topics are heavy, right? They're sad. Who wants to look at those crappy past lives of ourselves, right? I didn't recognize that was going to be the deal when I started moving into these ideas, right? I thought, oh, this is going to be cool. Well, in the beginning, I was kind of freaked out, but then, I kind of felt my way in it, and I found a little community, and I was very grateful that I landed in a job where there were a couple of people who were having their own experiences, and I just right? It's just the way things worked out for me. And it made the process a little bit easier, right? Oh, no, my thank goodness. Because, like I said, I was totally blank. I didn't recognize, not having my moments of reflection and being a student. I just didn't want to be there, right? I didn't want to be seen, didn't want to be heard, and I would just blank off and go in a corner, and that was for like the elementary years and stuff. Once I got into high school, well, that was a different story, right? Those hormones are going, right? I was interested in boys, right? I wanted to wear nice clothes, but I was awkward because, again, I had that small community which was my family. And um and it wasn't till my senior years, in all fact, in grades 11 and 12, that I picked up a friend. It's really curious how I picked that friend up, but that was a lifesaver for me because it gave me a taste, right? Even though I'm scared, I don't want to be seen, I don't want to be heard, I have a friend. And sometimes just knowing somebody and just standing beside somebody is enough when you need to drum up a little bit of courage for something that is probably much needed or much wanted, but you just don't have the nerve for it, right? So with my friend, right? And she was amazing. And I have to say, her name was Linda. And, she was truly my first real friend in high school. And we stayed friends right up to our 10-year high school reunion. So that was pretty good. We lost touch since then. I wish her well. I hope she's doing well. But yeah, nobody in high school, nobody. So even the lowest of the low, nobody. I was just like, it was just me, right? And that want was there, right? But that fear was there too. One of my uh, favorite thought leaders out there, uh, and he comes up with these things that impact me, and I kind of know that they're his, right? Lots of the stuff that goes around, you can tell because everybody says it that it's the same, right? But when you come across somebody who's saying something different, and you can feel, right? Because we're highly sensitives, right? That we can feel somebody that truly believes in what they're saying, it made me want to believe in that too. So, in yapping at that for a moment, I even forgot too what it was that I was going to saying that, but it was a saying that he said all the time, and it really impacted me. But I better get back into it before I lose the topic completely, because I am pooped tonight, and I hope you guys forgive me. I know you guys will, and if you guys popping in tomorrow, you're on your way to work, I hope you have a good giggle, and right, you start your day with a smile on your face, right? It is a gift that, I'm able to do this for myself, to be able to be consistent and showing up, being consistent in that. um, I'm not going to say attitude, I'm going to say curiosity, right? I'll say curiosity, because that curiosity makes it so that, I want to be a little bit more now. I think I can confidently, more courageously, maybe more bravely. It's all the same thing, right? Right? Show up the way I want to. I always wanted to, but I couldn't, right? Because of, well, you guys know how life gets sometimes, how we get impacted, right? And, I'm not gonna um, beat myself up, because it is the past. It's the past, right? It is the past. It's nothing, absolutely nothing now, but it's everything. It is everything, and that's the truth. Because who wants to move forward and have these agitations and anxieties and fears? And I guess that's all the same again, right? you know the pain, the confusion, maybe the frustrations, the same disorders in the, because we're so agitated that we start moving in to directions that we're not meant to go in, but because we're being protective, right? Because we don't want to be seen by or being heard, we pretend, right? And we build characters for ourselves that aren't really us. For me, I'm trying to be really genuine in what I'm doing, because I understand there are going to be a lot of people, a lot of souls, right, that are going to be coming to the surface, and they're going to need some help getting through, because I recognize for myself how difficult it was. But like I said, I managed okay. And I I have met those that have not managed at all, or are going through it all, and yet will never surface to an understanding of what's going on. And again, these are important as being spectators in, and as being, you know uh list self learners, because we get to recognize lots of times that the way that we were kind of brought up, not just in our home, but it could be in our religion, or maybe our political ideas, right? These cultures that are thousands and thousands kilometers apart from each other, we're this close at any minute now, right? And this digital age has only been going on 20, 25 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. But still, that is not long for how fast we're moving. And they say we're doubling in our intelligence, doubling every 2 years. We are doubling it. Isn't that isn't that crazy? I don't know why it's doubling every 2 years. You could say it's doubling every year if it's doubling every 2 years, can't you? I don't know. Math was never my suit. Logic is sometimes, I like to theorize, not conspiracy theories. That's for me, that's a little bit of drumming up chaos, drumming up mass hysteria, but reasonable in looking for solutions and ideas that help, right? And help in so many ways. And without me being that spectator, without me being that student when I didn't know I was being a student. All I knew is I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want to be heard. I picked up a few traits to avoid that. And even when I had friends, I could be the the most visible wallflower ever, right? Because you could feel my eyes on you, right? But yeah, maybe that was part of it. But I don't know what it is. But as I became more mature, as I left high school, became my own person, I found my independence. I escaped. I knew and I remembered how wonderful friends were. And I had moved to a totally new city. I came here when I was 18 with my family. And it was different. It was different, but I've gone through these changes all my life. My dad would pick us up and we would move somewheres constantly, right? I went to, I think, 11 different elementary schools. Only went to 2 high schools, right? But change was nothing new to me. And when I came to Winnipeg and I started over, oh my goodness, so grateful that my dad picked this city for so many reasons. It served our family very, very well. I'm very proud to call myself a Manitoban as much. And I didn't even get born here. I'm from Vancouver, right? But the people here are just incredible. And I found no friends. Those friends found me. It was amazing. And, in that, right, of course, we were all sensitives. We were all empaths, right? But again, Cindy didn't understand that. I was just having a good time, right? And I was feeling good because, right, it wasn't crazy town for the most part. We loved on each other. I could feel that. And that was one thing, right, I could do. And I felt comfortable. And the few people that were in the group that I didn't feel so comfortable for, it didn't matter because the people that loved on me would never allow anything to ever happen to me. And it was incredible experiences. And it led me into having lots of jobs. I've never been able to hold on to a job very long, right? In my early years, no problem. But as I became more mature again, marriage fell apart and everything, I couldn't hold a job anymore, right? I was disillusioned with the world. And I guess that was like the start of it all, right? And it took a long time. And of course, menopause didn't help it at all, right? And I think a lot of it is disguised in that because we we blame a lot of the symptoms on the menopause, and it all gets mixed up. And that's a good way to go through too, because you don't get that that hairy scary, right? That that which could crush you. And it's important to do the baby steps. I think it's important. Nobody's in a rush, but we are in a transition, you guys, and it's going to be right. Everybody, right? We're all going to have to manage, possibly even in smaller groups, right? Because we are so right. This world is so big. This world is so big, and yet we're so close to everything. And I have to be careful myself. I'm going to be admit it because been a big person to say I don't watch the news. I don't delve in and right. But I have been. I have right. There's a couple of topics going on in the world that I've kind of right been kind of watching, and that's not the norm for me. I usually don't pay attention again to the news. Like I know if it's important, it'll come across my path, right? Somebody will tell me. I have never missed out on anything that was right. Even if something drastic, it would right. My phone would go off. I'm not that way. Okay. I'm not I'm not stressing out, and I'm not stressing out because I'm not into the headline news. Lots of things that I don't pay attention to because my attention doesn't need to be. There are people who love that stuff. There are people who are watching and conspiracy, right? They're paying attention, right? The minority will always hold the majority accountable, right? And that's a good thing in my opinion, right? Because lots of us are 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 again in that mass hysteria. We could mass go for something. It even happened in my own house. My dad lived by majority rules. There were six of us in our household. When it came to the TV or the Sunday drive or what restaurant to go, it was always majority rule. And if he already had the idea of what he wanted in his head, he would always be the last person to say what it was. So, because he could be the deciding factor, right? But sometimes he would be the first, and then we knew, oh, free game, this is a good one, right? And then we'd all get a free say in that. There was no majority rules on hockey night in Canada. I have to say that too. But, the minority will always hold the majority accountable in what they don't get right. Right? You guys voted in President Trump, and now the minority is holding the majority accountable in that because the majority voted in Trump. But a lot of that, right? There's that understanding of having these conversations that possibly the majority might swing another way, right? It is what it is as far as I'm concerned, right? When the headline news comes across and Donald Trump's not coming across my screen, I don't right? If he's not coming across my feed, I don't care. Right? I'm not going to go search out that stuff. But like I said, there were a couple of things going on in the world, and I have been paying attention. Right? I have been paying attention. Okay, you guys. So, to get back to the main trunk of the tree, it wasn't the topic when I came in. I have a whole list of things. This is something new to me, right? Because it is important. I know for myself, being a spectator in my life, it 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 caused me problems, right? I'm just thinking, hiding in the kitchen and watching my family to make sure everything's good with my sisters and stuff, right? Being ready to jump, right? That I was so hyper vigilant in that way. So I know that, sometimes paying attention is not necessarily a good thing, but that was a good thing, right? For me, I believe that was a good thing. my hypervigilance and how it came about, you know, in the end, I have to say it is a gift, right? Yeah, it is. It allows me to have a heads up, right? Even if it's just one step. I always get one step. Right? And in the end, by the skin of my teeth, right? I slide through the finish line. I'm good with that. Right? I truly. Hello, Hannah. Hello, Hannah. I'm good with that, right? But other parts of me, right? Like I said, they want, right? They want to come forward, and in being a spectator and in those lessons that I got in my past, right? um, I'm going to utilize those just like I utilized the lessons I didn't want, those lessons that I didn't manage to get that I really, really wanted, and I managed to get that, right? I managed to have my fairy tale Cinderella wedding, right? I managed to get the most perfect husband for me, most sensitive and attentive, and knew exactly, right? All my needs, all serviced up to me. It was, pretty amazing to think that, I got all these things in my life that I truly did want. But those are Cindy things. Those are Cindy things. Those other parts of me, they got they got plans. They got plans, right? I got what I wanted, right? And there are other things, right? I know, right? Move forward. I just, right? I believe and I trust that everything will manifest to me like it always has in my entire life. Maybe a little bit late in the process, but it's gonna show up in my life. Everything that I want, right? And I'm not afraid to put in that sweat equity. And even though, right, I have my foot on the gas, I have my foot in the brake too. That's in the kind of in the middle, isn't it? It's not very good for the engine. I get that, right? But it is in the middle, and I think that's where I'm supposed to be, right? Everything so much, just everything is just kind of in the middle, and you know, there are still lessons in that, right? But in that paying attention and in those experiences. And I understand that I cannot only be a spectator in my life because the lessons are in the action, and when you say it, like, look at my experience, it is in the action. It was going off camping with my friends and going to movies and going to concerts and working at the bar where I right on the weekends. It's where me and my friends used to hang out and doing house parties, and that was my life, right? But those are my experiences, and my experiences offered up the experience of, right? If that is what those other parts of me want, right? I can't say. It hasn't come across my path yet, right? It's not an understanding that I have. But I'm moving forward, and right, and I get it, right? In that being a spectator and in not wanting to be seen, right? I just wanted to be invisible. There were an opportunity there for me to learn some things, right, that were a little bit different so that I could actually recognize that what was going on in my household, not that it was all bad, it was in the middle. Right? And I think that's a big part of why I'm able, right, to have this experience and why I'm able to show up consistently. And it is because that in my own experience, in paying attention and in my hypervigilance, that, I was able to notice that, you know, my family was not part of the majority. And there are lots of families out there, right? So it's just a wonderful thing that we have this digital age, that even though we're thousands and thousands and thousands of kilometers away, that we can be this close and be able to learn, right? Learn by other people's experiences. And the best part about it, it's safe, right? It's safe. You're in your home, or you're in your own safe space, wherever that is. And you are right, you are having an experience, and that's true. And for lots of us, it's going to be, oh, good to hear, Eugene. And for lots of us, we're going to have similar experiences, not to the same degree, right? Because, I've been at this for 6 years, but I know people who've been at this for, honestly, 30, 40 years, and they're still at it. Yeah, I suspect this is going to be a lifetime, right? And I'm not afraid of the change. And because, right, my dreams came true, I didn't say happily ever after. I might have, but I don't remember saying so. But I would have said for sure I wanted a Cinderella wedding, and right, I wanted a Prince Charming, and I got both, right? And those are only a couple. There are only a couple of things, right? We're in a little bit of a stall right now, but like I said, right, I'm in no rush. I have everything that I need, more than what I need. Oh my goodness, I'm only halfway done. Tomorrow night, when you come in and hang out with me, you might see it might look a little bit different. Take a look behind me, might look a little bit different tomorrow. Uh, it has to. I need to feel that my 12 hours of work, not to mention all the work that I've done in the past couple of months, that it's actually going to be uh, something that, right, is noticeable. Oh, yeah, I can already see some stuff that can go to the yard sale. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. We'll see you tomorrow.